dreaming, create the preschool of your dreams. So, how many of you guys have had dreams? Raise your hand if you have a dream. How many of you have your dreams come to pass? How many are still working on those dreams? I'm one of those that is still working on my dream, and so that's kind of where I'm coming from today. So a little backstory. Here's my little personal story. I knew since like the 4th grade that I wanted to be a preschool teacher. That's just what I did. I was always drawn to children. I could be in the grocery store and your mom tells you no, but if I saw a little baby, it would light me up. And so that is what I wanted to do. And in the 5th grade, I knew that I wanted to own a preschool. I remember jotting down like names, but I wish I could find that in notebooks. I'm curious what that 5th grade child wrote down as names for a preschool. I'm so curious. I'm like, but my parents moved when I was in college, and so who knows what my dad did with my stuff from my bedroom, because I was in college when they moved to Arizona. So, yeah, I'm so curious. What did I write down? I don't remember. But I would love to know what that was. So, like I said, I absolutely loved working with children. So I babysat. I think I started babysitting when I was like in the 12th grade. 12 years old, and just drawn to children. That's what I did. You know, family events, I was with the little ones. You know, that's what I did. I loved being with children. Went to college, got a scholarship, and went to do child development, because that's what the school offered. But I remember telling my parents, you know, I want to own a preschool, I want to be a preschool teacher. And they're like, there's no money in that. Are you sure that's what you want to do? I'm like, yes, that's what I want to do. What about a pediatrician? No, I don't want to do that. What about social work? No, I don't want to do that. No, I want to do this. You know, and I remember I was actually in a preschool and absolutely loved it. And then my sister went to the same one when she was little. And I just remember thinking like, yeah, this is like, you know, as a child, that this is what I want. I want to work with kids. Like, that's what lights me up. You know, and then finally go to college. And I finally get the opportunity to work as in my college's preschool program, and as you know, like an intern. And I remember calling home like, yes, this is what I want to do. Like, yes, this is me. Like, I absolutely loved it. You know, it was a model program, so it was like a top-notch program. You know, all the teachers that worked there were part of the NACE accreditation board. You know, so each classroom, you know, because it was preschool, so it was a couple hours a day, but then they also had a full day. But each classroom had a different curriculum that they used. So one classroom used creative curriculum, one classroom used high scope curriculum. And so I was able to experience those and walked into our storage room, tons of prop boxes for kids to be able to pull out. So this was a model program. Like, I couldn't imagine being any place else, you know, like schooling wise. I was like, man, I got the jackpot for college. Who would have thought? Like, I would be at a model preschool, and it was also inclusive program too. So, you know, I got to see how it worked with, you know, inclusive with children with Down syndrome or autism, and how that incorporated in there. And me being extra introverted and shy, I light up with kids. You know, and I remember the first time, like, and then, so I did my little internship, and then the director asked me to work there. And so for me, I must be doing good if they're asking me out of everybody that probably interns there, they asked me to work there. And so I did, and, you know, the next thing you know, they're asking me to do a circle time. I was like, what? You want me to do a circle time? Are you, like, there's people watching, because we have mirror, you know, those two-way mirrors. I'm like, like, I was more nervous about the adults, not the kids. It was about the adults in the space. Like, you want me to do what? Like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, you know, but of course I did it and absolutely loved it. And just each time, I just continued just to grow into this. You know, like, this is what I want to do. And I always knew in the back of my head, I wanted to own a preschool. I want to own a preschool. student, to work there. And so I was like, well, I'm not getting my master's, that's not happening. I'm not doing that. So for one, I don't have the money, and two, I was telling Natalie this morning, I don't do papers. Like, I'm not, like, if you have to put a word amount on there, I can't do it, because I'm straightforward to the point. Like, so there's no way I can go into getting a master's and possibly have to write papers, because my undergrad, I hardly had to. I was blessed. I hardly had to do any papers. So I was like, I'm not taking that opportunity. So I left and went on to work in childcare, because that's what you did when you have a child, a degree. And at that time, not everybody had a degree in childhood, early childhood at that time. Hello, I'm 29 years in. So 29 years ago, I was a rare breed to have a degree in child development and going into childcare. So, I continued to work at some of the best places over there. So I began to put my standards really, really high on my dream. I've worked, at the Bright Horizons and the Goddard schools, and there's a company out here called Southwest Human Development that's also a really good company, and they have, their sights are really high too on what they want for children, so I've worked at all these different places, and I've become a childcare snob, in a way, because places I worked at were accredited or going to be accredited, or, and my first experience, the model program, where, they had model Fridays where people would come in and watch the program to learn more. And so I'm just like, gosh, I really would love to still, like, in the back of my head, okay, in my preschool, at some point I would do a preschool. So, needless to say, I kept putting it off. There's reasons, I'll get to this in a second, but how I ended up here, so I'm gonna kind of fast forward a little bit, is that in 2020, November of 2020, my aunt moved into my neighborhood, and so I still had some of my boxes and stuff at my parents' house from when I moved back from Texas. So I had lived here for a season, then I moved to Texas, and then I moved back here, and my parents still had some of my stuff from when I was in Texas, and my aunt dropped off some of my stuff at my house, and the first box I opened was this, and I pulled this out, and it has a drawing that I made of a preschool that I did back in 2003, December of 2003, and my mom goes, maybe next year you should do that. And I was like, in my head I'm thinking, yeah, right, that's not gonna happen. I was like, we just got a new owner, I prayed for, like, we got rid of the other owners, there's no way, and in my head I'm like, no. And she's like, well, look, it was the first thing you pulled out, like, maybe it's your time to do that. And I was like, yeah, maybe, and I put it back in the box. A month later, I was like, oh. So, I was just like, oh my gosh. Mind you, in 2020, I saw Joy's ad every freaking day. Every day. And I was just like, but it kind of annoyed me because it said, why I hate daycare. Even though I worked in childcare, I was like, I work in childcare, I don't work in daycare. My teachers have to do lesson plans. I was a director. I was like, I have expectations of my teachers. And so I was kind of like irritated by it in a way. But at the same time intrigued, because in my back of my head, what did I want to do? Go to preschool. And so the whole 2020, I was just like, okay, and then finally, obviously I was let go at the end of 2020 in December, a couple days before Christmas. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? Why, like, what you're telling me, like when he was telling me, like, what? It doesn't even make sense. How come we never even had a conversation about this? Like, why wasn't I brought in with the teachers? Or, it was just like, I was let go, but also spiritually, I felt like that weekend, I was just like, something's going on. Like, I feel like something was going on that weekend. Like Mondays, I'm gonna get in trouble for something. I know I didn't do anything, but I was like, okay, let's go to work. And then I was like, oh. And then, of course, I was super sad, super like, what? I don't understand now, what am I gonna do? And I try to apply for other jobs. Mind you, I am well qualified. I got a degree, I have so many years experience, I've been a director, you know, the past like 8 of those maybe years at that time, I was like, I've worked at the best places, you know, like, why are these doors shutting on me? You know, they were either ignored or they hired from within, which, yeah, you know, I understand that, you hire within. But then it hit me at the end of January of 21, beginning of February 21, where I actually saw Joy's hat. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I got the book. And, you know, I joined the free group, and and then of course, what do I still do? My preschool's still on a pedestal. Even joining the free group and getting the book, I still had my preschool on a pedestal. I'll just do online. It'll be easier. I'll do online. That's what I'll do. I'll do an online preschool, you know, and then I'll maybe in the future do a local one way or the other, you know, like I'll figure it out, you know, but I'm, you know, reading the book and doing the 7-day challenge all at the same time, you know, so it took me more than 7 days. It took me from February to March to do the 7-day challenge. And I opened up of April 21 with 4 students. And then Preschool All-Stars opened up. And, but I joined and won a free year of All-Stars as well that year. Because I just loved helping. I was at home, I wasn't doing anything, so I was helping in the free group, like, hey, answering questions, oh, she said this, you know, like, just being in my element. I felt like I was finding my tribe, not even knowing about All-Stars really at that point, you know, but I was just doing my bit in All-Star, in the free group. And needless to say, the breakdown to break free is when, you know, I really still, I think I said in there too, I was like, my preschool's on a pedestal. It's gonna cost this amount of money to do what I wanna do because I have such a vision for my preschool. I want my preschool to look this way. My home wasn't what I envisioned. That's not what I envisioned for my preschool program. You know, I didn't envision it, you know, my dog was another reason. Oh, I have a pit bull. You know, like, I can't have a preschool in my house. My dog, I don't know how my dog is gonna do, you know. All these different reasons for not doing the preschool because it didn't fit my vision at the time. But at the same token, Joy said, why not? Why not? Put your dog up, put him outside, put him in your bedroom, you know, start where you're at, you know, I had an empty bedroom, kind of a storage in there at the time, but I have this space, why not? My kids don't use the backyard, I use the front yard, and my parents are okay with that. You know, but I still have a vision for my preschool. You know, is it still where I want it to be? No, it's not, but it's getting there. You know, one of the things, going back to this, I was like looking through here and I dated some of the stuff that I was writing down. You know, like November of 2003, you know, I was writing down tuition rates and what I want to do. So I remember seeing, because the other thing is too, sometimes I would drive by and like see empty childcare centers that used to be a childcare center, and then I'd like, okay, should I not? You know, but because of the fact of you work in this field, if you're an early education person, not a teacher, but you don't get paid very much. A degree, 29 years ago, I came out, okay, working, well, $10 at that time was the high. I left that place because I knew I shouldn't work there. Took a $1 pay cut to do what I wanted to do with a degree. Most of my places I've taken pay cuts to do what I do because I loved it so much. I was like, okay, I'll take the pay cut. Like, at least I'm happier. You know, but I wasn't financially able to. And so I just kept putting my preschool up here. Like, it's gonna cost me millions of dollars, which actually it is gonna cost me millions of dollars to get it open. It's gonna cost me millions of dollars. I want this, I want that, I want this. And I'm not gonna be able to do it. There's no way. I barely make any money. How am I gonna do this? What am I gonna do? But looking through here reminds me that God placed that vision in me as in the 4th grade. He's also the one that told me that I was gonna open a preschool in the 5th grade. You know, he's the one that shut that door. He's the one that kicked me out of that job in 2020. He closed that door, not me. I didn't close it. Because I would have worked there until the cows came home, you know, because I'm loyal. You know, I love what I do and I'm loyal, and I would have just kept thinking, oh yeah, someday I'll open that preschool. Oh, because it's gonna cost me too much money. I can't do it now. Can't do it. There's no way. But someday I'll do it. And so, to me, it was my mom. God spoke through my mom on the basis of, it was time. In 21, I opened up the preschool. It looked differently than what I thought it was gonna look. It was in my house, and my house, as I was mentioning earlier, is shrinking because if you walk in, as Dawn got to see, my circle time is right there when you walk in. So I have everything set up, you know, like down the hallway, there's stuff too, like, you know, and I have a little table out there so that I have more space besides this, the classroom area, and, you know, and my garage is half full with stuff as well, and there's probably still more stuff that I want to probably buy for the new school year. And, yeah, so it's growing. But what keeps my vision alive is the fact that I live in an area that's up and coming. It's growing. And there's nowhere for kids to go. There's like one childcare center there. And last I checked last year, there was a 1.5 year wait list for children under the age of 3. And so, okay, I had to do something. So, needless to say, there's a property that's like 5 minutes from my house. And last year, I, you know, like, saw it, like, there's, you know, I live in it's still called a county, so we're not a town, we're not incorporated. And so I called my county to find out, I was like, hey, how do I find out if land is available, if it's pre-zoned, or, you know, what do I do? You know, and so she sent me, you know, a little website you can check out, and, you know, I had this other plot of land that I thought was like, oh, this would be perfect, it's more in, like, 15 minutes from me down the street a little bit, and I was like, it's busier, it's probably the best place to be, you know, and then I felt the Lord say, nope, I want you here, which was 5 minutes outside of my house. And I was like, okay, so that was February of 23. So it took me up until like April of 23 to get enough courage to like write them to find out about the property. And they had sold it. I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's not meant for me. But I was like, oh no, I know it's meant for me. I know it, I feel it. I was like, okay, Lord, if it's meant for me, you're gonna have to release some of this property. You have to release it. You know, we're doing the Phoenix journey, and I write in there what my year goal was gonna be, like, you know, by August of 2024, I want to have either broke ground or something on this property. You know, that was my goal. I think it was like that Sunday, I was on my way to church, and there's a sign now available. I was like, oh my gosh. I call my mom on the way to church. I'm like, oh my gosh, Mom, you won't believe this. There's a sign out on the property. It's available. I was like, oh my gosh. And so I was like, but I wasn't sure, so I was like, okay, let me, you know, after church, so I go by, and lo and behold, there's a sign available. And I'm like, so I was like, Mom, can you do me a favor? Can you call for me? Because I was just so nervous. I was like, I don't know what, you know, she called, and she's like, oh, go ahead and call him. You know, he's really nice, and da-da-da, here's his number, this is the guy, da-da-da. I'm like, okay. So I call him the next day, and he's like, yeah, you know, you're the first person to call. He's like, we just put the sign up. I was like, yeah, I know. I have been watching. And he's like, yeah, they, you know, there's apartments that are going there, but they didn't need 4 acres of it. They didn't need all of it, so they released 4 acres of it. I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, so, you know, I'm planning on doing the childcare. And he's like, okay. He's like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with childcares. I've helped build a couple of childcare centers here in Arizona. You know, and I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah. And he told me the names. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with those. Yeah, I know. And he's like, so what are you thinking? And I was like, okay, well, I'm thinking, you know, probably 12 classrooms, because the other childcare center down the street is 13 classrooms. So I don't want school agers, so it'll be 12, you know, and I like even numbers. I'm one of those that I like even numbers. And he's like, okay, so you're probably looking at like a 5,000 square foot building from what you're saying. I'm like, okay, that sounds about right. And he said, he's like, oh, we'll build a suit. I was like, oh, really? No way. Awesome. Okay. Great. And so, you know, I was like, okay, so I'm thinking he'll build a suit, you know, then I'm trying to keep in touch with him, and then he disappeared for a second, then he popped back up. You know, I would reach out, and he was like, oh, we're still, you know, we're still working on things out. I'm working on the site plan now to get it to the county and everything. And come December of 23, the owner decided no, he didn't want to do that anymore. And so now I'm back to square one. Now I need money to build my dream. It's out there, and you can go like, oh, I wonder if I have the picture. Oh, no, this is not my phone. This is my work phone. Is that the site plan is done, and I was believing for like 1.5 to 2 acres, and I was believing for a certain part of the property as well. And I saw the site plan just scrolling Facebook one day. Somebody had posted like, hey, this is what's coming up on, it was I think my neighborhood chat or page or whatever. And it was 1.5 acres. Well, no, I didn't know 1.5 acres at the time, but it was in the area that I wanted it to be. I was like, oh my gosh, another little piece of nugget. It's exactly where I wanted it. You know, and then I ended up calling him and talking to him, you know, about, you know, what cost, what does it look like? Because at first he said lease. I was like, how do you lease land that you're supposed to build on? I was like, that didn't make sense on my brain. Like, how do you do that? Like, he's like, oh, no. He's like, that would be prior. I was like, because you're building from scratch, you have to buy the land. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, and he's like, yeah. I was like, so how, I was like, what is it cited for? Like, he's like, oh, 1.5 acres. I was like, that was my other nugget. Like, you're supposed to be here, because that's what I was believing for. And so yeah, the property's $1.4 million. And it's probably gonna take me $1 million more to build what I have envisioned, you know, because I'm also one of those that is very unique. I don't want to be like everybody else. I want my building to kind of circle the playground so the kids come out to the playground. And then, because I remember so my drawing is a sketch that was similar to one of the Bright Horizons I worked at here. And I love the fact that the playground, that each age group had the playground was all there. So the kids were able to see each other over the fence, and they're also able to see like their future teacher possibly, you know, as well, if they're on the younger side. And so I was just like, wow, I just loved how that felt. You know, like, you know, me at the time, I was a teacher. You know, I loved the fact that, you know, I can see my kids because I was a TUS teacher at that time. I could see my kids from before, you know, they'd come to the fence and they come to see me, and then I can also introduce them, my kids that I currently have, to their future teacher, and, you know, and so I said, oh, I would love to be able to do that, you know, and so, but I also want, you know, a multi-purpose room. You know, I envision like a really play-based childcare center. I want children to be able to be who they are as children. I want them to experience childhood the way they're meant to experience childhood, you know, and learn in that process. And so, as I'm at home and being in my house, you know, I realize more and more that sometimes it's hard to be what you want in your home because it's my house. And I don't want paint on my walls. I don't want paint on my carpet. And so I find myself being stagnant in a way and more structured than I was as a teacher when I was outside of my home, or even as a director when I was outside of my home. And so I don't feel like I'm the person that I want to be in my space. You know, so it's hard. It's like I have my preschool, but at the same time, it's not truly fully what it is that I want. You know, and so I keep envisioning like, you know, nice sized classrooms, and they have their stuff, and, you know, and like centers outside, and so I just keep envisioning this preschool program. And it's like, now how do I get there? I see it over there, but how do I get there? And sometimes it feels like it's not gonna happen still. I still feel like that dream is still on this pedestal that I can't reach. because God gave it to me. And He's gonna make it happen. And I just wanna encourage each of you to, even though that dream seems like it's unattainable, you know, to continue to work towards it. To continue to put that foot forward. You know, like I tell people at Support Saturday, you know, it's like, as long as you're moving forward, you're growing. It's when you become stagnant and not do anything is when it's a problem. Because what happens when things stagnate? They die. You know, and for me, I've always liked to grow and to learn. You know, I'm always seeking to learn and to grow so that I can be better for the children and the families that I serve. And so I'm working towards it. You know, I'm looking into getting a loan as a possibility. I'm looking into finding out for grants, you know, I'm gonna probably, I think it's called a commissioner, because we don't have a mayor, but I'm thinking about reaching out to him to see if there's a way maybe to partner, because it's a need. My community needs it. You know, it's not a want, it's a need in our area. And so, you know, I am working towards this because I'm also introverted, so I've been thinking about this for like a week of emailing him, and I've yet to do it because it's putting myself out there. And you know, I don't like rejection. You know, I don't like to be told no, or I don't like to, you know, it's hard for me. But I know where I thrive at, and I thrive in this field because this is what I was meant to do. I was meant to work with children, and now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, Lord, I was like, I don't want to be the teacher anymore. I was a director for a reason. You know, I was called in that season for, you know, the time, and now it's time for me to move out and do the next part, which is grow up other teachers. That's what I enjoy doing. That's one of the reasons why I enjoy Support Saturdays, that I'm able to help and impart into others and help them to grow into the people that they're meant to be. And that's what I enjoyed as a director, is helping my teachers value what they did, you know, and helping them with my knowledge to pass it on to them, you know, and that's what I want to do. You know, I want to pass my knowledge on to others in an environment that I feel is best for children. You know, because a lot of times and so I'm doing a child care center, as I thought I was just going to do a preschool when I was going to be moving out of my house, but the Lord's like, nope, you're going to start with infants through possibly kindergarten. And so but I'm going to still have a preschool class. I'm going to hopefully, depending on obviously who enrolls or whatever, I'm hoping to have a preschool class that will still run like mine does now. I run 4 hours in the morning and 3.5 in the afternoon. Because that works for me. Because 2.5 hours is just not long enough for me. Like, it's probably long enough for parents, but for me, because I've been doing this so long, that it's too short. And so 4 hours is perfect. Sometimes I feel like a full day, because that's what I'm used to, because that's what, you know, outside of the college, I went to childcare. What is childcare? All day long. And so sometimes I feel like I would thrive still in it all day, because I have so many ideas of what to do with the kids and not enough time. But 4 hours is perfect, and 3.5 hours in the afternoon is perfect as well. Sometimes I kind of forget that it's 3.5, and I'm like, oh, that's right, we're almost over. Oh, shoot. But so it's funny because I had an outline here, and I realized I kind of just went totally off of what my outline was. but just know that your dreams are as close as you want them to be, and as far away as you want them to be. And realizing that you have to start somewhere in order to obtain that dream. You know, like I kept hearing, you need to start where you're at. You just need to start where you're at. Joy was the first one to say, you need to start where you're at. Then somebody else says, you need to start where you're at. You know, and so I started where I'm at. You know, I started with 1 kid when I opened October of 21. And this fall, I'm starting with 9 children. You know, this coming fall. And so I always have to say, like, I always thought I would be full from the get, because in fact, there's nothing out there, but yet they don't know me. You know, I'm just now becoming more popular. And now I just gotta figure out how to convert those people that are viewing my website to contact me, because there's a lot of people that are looking me up.